Okay, picture this for a second. It really sounds like the plot of a thriller movie, maybe something you'd watch on a Saturday night.
Hmm.
But just stick with me because this is very real. You've worked your whole life, maybe, 20, 30 years, grinding away in London, driving a bus, or maybe working double shifts in a hospital in New York.
The classic immigrant story. A lot of sacrifice for a future goal.
Exactly. And you send money back home to Jamaica every single month. You're disciplined, focused, and you finally buy that piece of land.
Right.
Maybe it's in St. Elizabeth, maybe up in the cool hills of Manchester. It's not just dirt and grass to you. It's your retirement plan. It's the legacy you're leaving for your kids.
It's everything.
It's everything. You let it sit there, safe and sound. Then one morning, maybe you decide to fly down for a visit, or a cousin calls you, you go check on the property, and there's a fence up. There's a foundation being dug.
Oh, that's the nightmare scenario.
And the worst part, the person building on it, they aren't squatting. They have the papers. The title is in their name. The government says it's theirs.
You're standing on your own land, but legally. You've been erased.
You've been erased from your own legacy without ever signing a single document, without even being in the country.
It's terrifying. And, based on what we're digging into today, for some people, it is not a movie plot. It is a devastating administrative reality.
And that is exactly what we are diving into today. This isn't just about a crime story, although there is plenty of crime involved. We are talking about a systemic collision. We're looking at what happens when these systems, built for a paper-based era, literally designed in the 19th and 20th centuries, get completely headbutted by crimes designed for the digital age.
That is the core friction point right there. It's old world bureaucracy versus new world fraud.
So to help us navigate this, we've got some really heavy-hitting sources. We're combining recent investigative reporting from the Gleaner on a massive alleged property fraud scheme.
Fake IDs, stolen titles, the works.
With a really dense analytical piece by Jamaica Homes called Fake IDs, Stolen Titles, and the Case for a Digital Reset.
And pairing those two is so important. The reporting from the Gleaner gives us the scandal, the arrest, the specific allegations.
Right.
But that Jamaica Homes analysis gives us the why and the how.
Okay.
It frames this not just as a legal case, but as a structural warning light for the entire economy.
Exactly. And just to be clear up front, the legal cases are all ongoing. We are not here to play judge and jury. We don't know the outcome of those trials yet.
No.
Our mission is to unpack the system that allowed these allegations to even happen in the first place.
Correct. We want to understand the mechanics of the vulnerability, because if you don't understand the mechanics, we can't fix it.
So let's start with the stakes. Real estate fraud happens everywhere, right? Florida, London, Vancouver. But the source material suggests this. This hits differently in the Jamaican context. Why is that?
It really comes down to the cultural weight of land in Jamaica. You have to understand, in a lot of Western economies, real estate is often treated purely as a transactional asset. It's a line on a spreadsheet you flip for profit.
Yeah, it's just an investment.
But in Jamaica, land is deeply personal. It's the primary vehicle for generational wealth transfer. For so many families, it represents stability, history, identity. It's often the only thing of significant value passed from parents to children.
It's that piece of the rock.
Literally. So when fraud strips someone of their land, you're not just causing a financial loss, though that loss is catastrophic.
Of course.
You're erasing history.
Yeah.
You're severing a connection to the island. That's why the emotional fallout described in the articles is so visceral. It breaks families apart.
Okay, so if the stakes are that high, if this is the most valuable thing people own, you would think the security around it would be like Fort Knox, impossible to crack.
You'd think so.
But the reporting describes a chain of vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Can you walk me through this? How does someone sell a property that doesn't belong to them? I can't even return a toaster without a receipt half the time.
It's funny you say that, because in some ways, it is harder to return the toaster. The store is actively looking for fraud. The terrifying thing here is that these property schemes, they rely on the system working exactly as it was designed to.
Wait, hold on. The fraud works because the system works. How does that...
Yes, it's rarely one single massive breach. It's usually a sequence of small cracks that just align perfectly. Dean Jones, the founder of Jamaica Homes, he has this quote in the analysis that I think really anchors our whole discussion.
Oh, I have it right here. He said, when fraud succeeds at this level, it's usually because multiple systems were designed for trust, not for stress.
Designed for trust, not for stress. That is such a critical distinction.
Unpack that for me. What does a system designed for trust look like in practice?
Okay, think about the average clerk at the titles office, or any government agency, really. Their job is to process paperwork efficiently.
Right. Move the line.
Exactly. So if I walk up to the counter and I present a driver's license, a birth certificate, and an application for a replacement title because I claim I lost the original one, the clerk's job is to verify. Do these documents look real?
They aren't playing detective. They're not interrogating you.
No. They're checking boxes. Is the seal there? Is the signature in the right place? So step one of the scheme is the identity takeover. You don't break in and steal the deed. You become the owner.
How?
You get a high-quality forged ID, a fake driver's license with your photo but the real owner's name. You get a copy of their birth certificate. And in a paper-based world, if you hold the papers, you are the person.
And once you're them, in the eyes of the clerk,
You apply for a replacement title. You claim the original was lost or destroyed. Because you have the ID, the system, just following its own rules, issues you a legitimate replacement title.
that is the twist that just messes with my head. The title isn't a forgery. It's real.
It's a genuine legal instrument. It was just obtained via fraudulent pretense. And once you have that replacement title, you control the asset. You can mortgage it, sell it, transfer it. By the time a bank or a buyer gets involved, they're looking at varied government-issued paperwork. They have no reason to suspect a thing.
That is terrifyingly simple. It all relies on the idea that paper documents are the ultimate source of truth.
And that brings us to the second major theme here, the limits of paper in a digital world. We're trying to secure millions of dollars in digital era value with, 1990s or even 1890s technology.
The article calls it the document bundle.
Right. Birth certificates, TRN cards, the taxpayer registration number, driver's licenses. The analysis points out a huge flaw. In a modern digital economy, paper documents don't prove identity. They only suggest it.
Okay, that's a distinction I really want to drill into. If I'm holding a driver's license with my face on it, why doesn't that prove who I am?
Because a piece of paper or even a plastic card is a static object. It's a snapshot in time. It has no live data behind it. If I hand you a license, you are relying on visual inspection, holograms, fonts, paper quality. But think about the tools available today. High-res printing, digital editing, AI-generated imagery. Creating a visually perfect forgery is accessible to almost anyone.
So relying on visual inspection is basically a coin toss at this point.
It's worse than a coin toss if the fraudster is a pro. The Jamaica Homes piece argues that as long as the root of trust is a physical object that can be replicated, the system is just fundamentally vulnerable. We're asking administrative staff to be forensic document experts, and that is not their job.
And to be fair to the staff, as the article mentions, this isn't about bashing the registrar of titles or the people behind the counter.
Not at all.
They're just operating the machinery they were given.
Correct. It's an infrastructure problem, not a personnel problem.
Yeah.
The environment changed. The criminals upgraded their tools to the latest tech, and the administrative state is still using the old toolkit.
It's like bringing a knife to a drone fight. So if paper is the weak link, the obvious answer everyone shouts is go digital.
Right.
But I feel like digital transformation is one of those buzzwords people throw around without knowing what it means. What does a digital reset actually look like for land ownership?
So the analysis looks at global trends, what other countries are doing to solve this exact problem.
Yeah.
And it really boils down to three pillars. You need fully digital registries, biometric identity verification, and immutable transaction logs.
Okay, let's take those one by one first. Fully digital registries. Isn't that just scanning the PDF and saving it on a computer?
No, and that is the most common misconception. Scanning a paper deed into a PDF is just digitizing paper. You still have a static document. A fully digital registry means the database is the legal record. The data points owner name, parcel number, are live entries in a secure system.
So there's no master paper in a basement somewhere that can be lost or stolen.
Exactly. The truth lives in the data, not on the page. Which links directly to the second pillar, identity verification. This is where we move away from the whole does this card look real test.
Yes, into what then?
Into does this person match the data? We're talking about multi-factor authentication. So if you want to sell a property, showing a card isn't enough. You might need biometric verification, a fingerprint, a facial scan that pings against a central encrypted government database.
So even if I have a perfect fake ID card with my face on it and the name John Doe, if I put my thumb on the scanner and it doesn't match the real John Doe file,
The transaction stops. Cold.
Yeah.
The system flags it. You can fake a card. It is much, much harder to fake a biometric match against a government server. It raises the barrier to entry significantly.
That makes sense. Raise the difficulty. Now, pillar 3. The article brings up the B word.
Ah, yes. Knew we'd get there.
We have to. Blockchain. But listen, every time I hear blockchain, I think of crypto scams and, Bored Apes. The Jamaica Homes analysis leans on this heavily. Can you explain why without making my eyes glaze over?
Absolutely. Let's just forget Bitcoin, forget currency, forget all the hype. In the context of land registries, think of blockchain simply as a truth machine.
Okay, I like truth machine. Go on.
A traditional database has a flaw. It usually has a super user, an admin who can go in, edit a record, change a name, and hit save. If that person is corrupt or their password is stolen, history can be rewritten.
And no one would necessarily know it happened.
Exactly. Blockchain is different. It's an immutable ledger. Imagine a notebook where every time you write a line, it's in permanent ink. You can't erase it. You can't tear the page out. And, crucially, you can't insert a fake page in between two others later on.
So it creates a perfect, unbreakable timeline of events.
A tamper-evident timeline, yes. If the land moves from John to Mary, that's block A. If Mary sells to Steve, that's block B. You can't go back and secretly change block A without breaking the entire chain and alerting everyone.
I can see why that's huge for property. It solves that traceability issue the article mentions.
It does. It gives you transparency, traceability, and owner visibility. And that last one owner visibility is the real game changer for you, the listener.
Owner visibility. This is the alert system.
Yes. Because the ledger is digital and live, it allows for automation. The article proposes a system where if any activity occurs on your title, a request for a duplicate, a caveat, a transfer, you get an instant notification. Text, email, app alert.
Like a text saying, attempted transfer detected, was this you?
Exactly. Right now, fraud relies on silence. On the fact that you might not check your title for 10 years, real-time visibility kills that silence. You catch the fraud at the attempt stage, not the eviction stage.
That sounds incredible. I mean, honestly, why aren't we doing this everywhere? But I'm sensing a but. There's always a but.
There's always a but. And Dean Jones is very careful in the article to warn against technological solutionism.
Meaning thinking the tech will magically fix human problems.
Precisely. He says blockchain is not a silver bullet. You can have the most advanced ledger in the world, but if the data entered into it is false in the first place, you just have a permanent, immutable record of a lie.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Or corruption in, corruption out. If there's collusion, if a corrupt official knowingly verifies a fake ID, the blockchain will just dutifully record it as a valid transaction. Technology supports good governance. It doesn't replace it.
So we still need humans we can trust. Still need oversight.
We do. But the tech makes it much harder for those humans to hide what they did. It creates a digital trail that is audit-proof. It removes the shadows where these deals usually happen.
Okay, so we've covered the nightmare scenario. We've covered the sort of sci-fi solution. But what about now? What can be done on Monday morning? The analysis lists some practical safeguards that don't require rebuilding everything overnight.
And this is where the Jamaica Homes analysis is really constructive. It's not just complaining. It offers a roadmap. They call it gradual digitization. You don't burn the system down. You just patch the biggest holes first. Like starting with risk-based verification.
Which means what, exactly?
It means stop treating every transaction the same. If I'm selling a small plot of land to my brother, that's low risk. But let's say there's a prime beachfront property worth millions, hasn't been sold in 40 years. Suddenly, it hits the market for a quick cash sale, and the seller is using a newly issued replacement title.
Red lights should be flashing everywhere.
Sirens should be blaring. The system should automatically flag that for enhanced due diligence. Pause the transaction. Require a face-to-face interview. Double-check biometrics.
It's about adding friction where it's needed. Usually we hate friction, we want things fast.
Exactly. Friction is usually bad in business, but in security, friction is your friend. You want that speed bump to slow the fraudster down.
Another suggestion was specifically for the diaspora, the opt-in alert service. This feels like a product someone should build tomorrow.
Oh, this is low-hanging fruit. A paid service, and people would pay for this, where you register your contact details with the land agency if anyone touches your file, For elderly owners or people living abroad in New York, Toronto, London, this is peace of mind in a bottle.
I'd sign up for that today. Even if I just owned a tiny patch of dirt, it's about feeling in control.
And that's the core message here. The goal of this digital reset isn't just to stop crime, It's to provide certainty.
Yeah.
The quote from the article that really stuck with me was, land ownership is about certainty.
That's deep. Because if you aren't certain, do you really own it?
Precisely. If investors, whether they're foreign hoteliers or returning residents, can't be certain their title is safe, capital flees, they won't invest.
It becomes a huge economic issue, not just a legal one.
A massive one. If the title system loses credibility, the real estate market freezes. Who buys land if they can't be 100% sure they actually own it? The ripple effects are huge.
So to wrap this all up, we've taken quite a journey. We started with that thriller movie intro, walked through the paper cracks that let it happen, the fake IDs, the static documents, and now we've looked at the digital shield that could stop it.
It is a journey from vulnerability to verification. That's really the shift.
And the takeaway from the Jamaica Homes piece seems to be that this scandal, as painful as it is for the victims, is a pivot point.
It has to be. You can't unsee these vulnerabilities now. The criminals have evolved. They're using digital tools to exploit analog weaknesses. The state has to evolve faster.
It's a call to action, not just for the government, but for owners to demand these tools, to say, hey, I want to be able to check my title on my phone.
Absolutely. The technology exists. This isn't science fiction. It's just a matter of implementation and, political will.
I want to leave our listener with a thought today. We spend so much time securing our digital lives. I mean, think about it. You have two-factor authentication for your email, Face ID to unlock your phone. You get text alerts if someone uses your credit card in a different city.
We lock down our Netflix accounts tighter than our houses.
Exactly. But we leave our biggest assets, our land, our homes, in a filing cabinet, essentially. If your identity is digital, but your inheritance is secured by a piece of paper in a folder somewhere, how safe do you really feel? Maybe it's time to check your status.
A sobering check-in, but a necessary one.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It's a complex topic, but one that literally hits home.
Stay vigilant.
We'll catch you in the next one. Stay curious.